And a very good morning to you, and welcome to the Midday Show. Quite a striking opening. As you can see, we've got a screen full of people. It's going to be a super interesting, very touching, and I will give you a fair warning, possibly triggering show today. We're going to have a very important conversation about a very uncomfortable subject and meet some amazing people, including an absolute pioneer in this field who you can see in the middle of the screen right now to my right. They're actually doing a minute silence at the moment, and I'm going to let them finish the minute silence. Obviously, we can't do silence on the radio, so that's why I'm chatting. But we're going to let their minute silence finish, and then we're going to find out why they're doing this minute silence and what today is. It's a very, very important day in all these people's calendars. And someone has jumped out of we lost. I can pop her back on. There we go. No problem at all. Right, I believe that is 1 minute. So let me unmute these wonderful folks. Good morning, Emma Jane Taylor.
Good morning, Neil.
Welcome to the show. I'm just frantically going around unmuting everyone now because I do all my own production. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Midday Show. Let's also say a very good morning to Charlie Lawson. Hello.
What about you, big man?
Good to see you, sir. I've watched you on the telly for years. I'm getting a bit fanboy here. Sarah Cracroft. Hello to you, Sarah.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. We've got Stuart Anthony as well. Hello to you.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. And I think we're expecting a couple more, actually. I'll just see if there's any comments in this early stage of the show. We've got somebody watching. Someone who's very connected with this. I didn't know she was going to be on, but morning to you. Emma Jane, first of all, can I ask you to give us a potted backstory? What brings you here to this moment? Because it's a terrible story and an incredible story, and right now it's turned the corner into an absolutely inspiring story, an inspiring woman, to be honest with you. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Emma Jane, on this key day and ask you to explain a little more for us, please.
Thank you, Neil. So I am a survivor of child sexual abuse. I was a victim at 9 years old. And then later on, when I was around 12, for about the next 4 years, 3 or 4 years, it took my childhood, actually. Those of us who have been through this widespread hidden horror will know exactly what I mean when I say it literally took my childhood. When I into my teens, late teens, early 20s, I realized what had happened to me, and that, of course, that it was something that shouldn't happen to anybody, child or adult. But by then I was already delayed with my onset of maturity. I was very held back because of the abuse. When you've gone through abuse, there's a lot of things that are taken from you as a child. And so as I went into my teens, I realized that, some of the behaviors that I had displayed as a child were actually trauma responses. Most people would have thrown away the key on me when I was a child. I was drinking and taking drugs and out of control from a very early age. Most people thought I'd be in prison or dead by the time I got sort of to 19, 20. Thankfully, neither, although very close on many occasions to both of those happenings. I went into therapy at 23. I never thought I'd be here as a campaigner, having Charlie Lawson, Jim McDonald text me saying he wanted to support me as a campaigner. As I went through my 20s, 30s, 40s, I just wanted to feel better. I work in the performing arts wellbeing industry, working with children and adults. As an ex-dancer, those were the things that kept me sane throughout the difficulties of my own life. And then one day I felt like a complete imposter. I felt like no one actually really knew me. I was seen as a woman who had done well in business. But actually, my success wasn't business. my success was that I'd survived and got through much trauma. I haven't taken any drink or anything illegal for about 30 years. I've been through years and years of therapy, and I stepped forward and I thought in 2019, I think around lockdown, I wanted to do more. My book had been published, and I wanted to do more. I think everybody here will probably agree. You know, if you can give someone hope, then that's been the only thing that I think I wanted to do with my story. And I started swirling around this conversation that actually, this isn't my chef team. I haven't done anything wrong. And why
No.
then, for years, did I feel like it was my fault and my responsibility? No one told me other. And so, as a campaigner and someone who had founded a charity, Project 9010, I realized it was time to sort of step up a gear. So I put this t-shirt on really for myself. And I had no idea what would happen next. I think, you know, certainly didn't think Charlie would ever. I used to watch Charlie with my mum and family at home when he was on Corrie, and then I get
Indeed,
this
we all
text,
did.
and I was like, "Hold on a minute, I got to check." I was like, I thought it wasn't really Charlie, and then we met, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I don't need to keep pinching myself. That's Jim McDonald
Indeed.
right there." And Charlie backed me, and you know, Charlie has become a really good friend of mine, and he believed in everything that I was campaigning for, the conversation I was campaigning for. I'm sure he'll share more as well. And then over the last sort of year, I've become friends with Stuart and Sarah and Nadia as well, all incredible people doing incredible things on this conversation. And here we are, Neil. You know, I never for 1 minute thought I'd be here. I don't want to be famous. I just want to make a difference. These guys are the famous guys. I'll let them do the job out front. And then I just want to make a difference. I want to be able to give survivors hope. I want to be able to protect children, because in itself, that's a legacy that I will feel, and that at the end of my life will have been the right thing to have done. So I'm grateful for everybody here.
It's so humbling to listen to your story. I first met you, ever met you in person, I hope you do one day, but met you when you were on Madeline Black's podcast, Unbroken. And I remember I was her producer. Oh, we've lost someone. I was her producer and editor. And listening to your story was just absolutely mind-blowing to me. And I remember, I can't remember how I got in contact, but somehow I did. And, you know, we got to know each other and that. And yeah, here we are. I mean, it's just amazing. It's amazing what you've done. It's incredible how humble you are about it as well. And as I was saying to one of the guests in the green room before we came on air, if in 10 years' time someone watches this video and it's that what they need, that they know they're not alone, that they've got help, and some of the best help can be seen through other people's success, by what you have achieved, you know, because of that, despite that, and what you're doing now, because that just gives the message to people: it's possible, there is hope, and hope's a powerful thing. And
absolutely, Neil. And you know, I look back on my life and I was told I was a failure. I was a girl going nowhere. I failed miserably everywhere. I mean, the only thing I succeeded in as a child was in PE. And it's no wonder that I'm a fitness addict and became a dancer, because those were my things that I really loved. But I believed that I was a failure. I believed that all the things that were told of me, and that's the existence. I mean, most people who know me back then will be able to tell you I was the local drunk. I was literally you know, hopeless and often found in bushes by police or people by the side of the road.
Nobody would understand why. Nobody, and that
No
must be
one
the
understood
isolation of
trauma.
something like this, because you were
I
acting
think
out of
even
a trauma response.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, I didn't.
And
I mean, the words trauma response have been. There's an awful lot more awareness around this issue now, which is a really good thing. And I'm familiar now with the terms trauma response, trauma bond. But back then I wouldn't have been.
My
Who was?
my family will remember times where policemen held me in my arms and said, "Is this your daughter?" and dropped me back to my home. And I came from a good, stable, like nice family. You know, unfortunately, my father had left, and that was another part of my story. But
Yeah.
no one looked at that and saw that there was issues further than maybe my father having left me as a
And they
child, and
wouldn't
that
do,
was
would they? And
maybe
I
where the
suppose people were just
confusion was.
judgmental, you know, she's such a bad kid, or I blame the parents, or something like that. And no one actually ever really asked the question that
No,
you
and
mostly
that's
really asked.
a whole big part of what we're doing here is actually, you know,
Yeah,
that child who is behaving badly, maybe look a little bit further into that adult who you know who is behaving in a way that doesn't seem normal, look a little bit further into that. It might not be child abuse, it might be something else, it might be something sinister, something else sinister as adult, but there is often a story behind a story. You know, we're born as good humans, right? Born as good people. What happens next is often determined by people in our life as adults. Our brains don't develop until late teens, early 20s. Some say late 20s, early 30s.
yeah.
And so it's complex.
So was the therapy like picking apart these beliefs about your self-image? Because I mean, I've done work like that recently, and my story is nowhere near as traumatic as yours. But we've all got stuff that we believe that runs us today, and life is, I guess, a process of unpicking that. And there must have been an awful lot of was that the therapy, all that teasing it apart, unpicking it?
I went into therapy at 23, put out my cigarette, went in to see the therapist, and I cried for about an hour. And I thought,
Yeah,
I've
sounds
got
about right.
this. I got this 12 weeks, and I'm going to be perfect and healthy. And 12 years later, I was still in and out of therapy.
Right.
And I've gone through talking therapies, holistic therapy. I've done every kind. I think I've done an A to Z of therapies. My last therapy, which was with hypnotherapy and a psychotherapist, was probably the most powerful therapy I had ever done in all
Yeah,
my
I was
years of
I was going
therapy.
to ask which was the most powerful. Did the previous therapy lay the groundwork for that to be powerful, or would that have been the most powerful one had you gone in with that straight away? Because I mean, you don't know,
Oh
but you,
no,
it's
I couldn't. I don't think I could have done that straight away because it was so in
interesting.
depth.
Yeah. So what we're
I think I
saying here,
needed to do all the others to get to a point where I
exactly.
felt
So what we're saying
capable to
here
go
is it's
in.
a process, and be easy with yourself as well. Self-love and self-compassion is so important. Perhaps that's the first takeaway. I want to go around the table, if I may, and speak to all these wonderful guests. First of all, there's a video you sent on WhatsApp yesterday. Would you like me to play that on air?
Mm.
Okay. I've never done this before. So if it doesn't work, I have made a link where people can go and download it as a backup, but let's see if it works.
Hashtag
Not
my
shame.
I not
Afraid to
say
I
was
sexually
abused
as a child.
I was just
A
child.
it.
Isn't I shame?
Wow. A friend of mine confided in me that she'd suffered abuse, and her words were, "It's a big dirty secret. I feel so alone. It's a big dirty secret." And the hashtag "not my shame" didn't actually exist then. That came later, thanks to you guys. And the thing that seemed most natural to say to her, which seemed to really reassure her, was, "Oh, there's shame, all right, a ton of it, but not yours." And that was the first thing that came out of my mouth. It belongs solely on the shoulders of the perpetrator. And it's such a sad thing as human beings, innocent human beings, that we take on things that don't belong to us and torture ourselves with things that were never ours in the first place. And I think once you reach that understanding, that's really powerful for anyone watching. Hello, Charlie Lawson.
How you doing? EJ. Hi, baby. Love you.
Everyone loves Emma Jane. Really good to have you on the show, Charlie. And as I say, I've watched you for years on the telly, so it's lovely to meet you. Thank you for being involved. What brings you here? So,
Well, a couple of reasons really. The initial kick in the ass was when I saw EJ actually wearing this T-shirt on social media, and I thought, Jesus, that takes some balls. And where I come from, I've grown up. I respect courage tremendously. I escaped being abused at school by the skin of my teeth because I was a tough little so and so, but plenty of my friends didn't. But I got in touch with EJ and was immediately impressed, as I say, by her courage, but also her warmth and honesty and all the rest of it. And then I said to her, I says, look, I put that T-shirt on in the garden for a photograph for her, and I felt how difficult that was, and how and as I say, I haven't been abused. And then I said to EJ, listen here, the girl I'm with now, my wife Debbie, for 23 years, was severely abused as a child. Excuse me, I find this rather difficult. And when she told me, she had a complete meltdown, and we had to deal with that together over the last few years. And over the last couple of days, I've been talking to EJ, and we're best of friends now, which is a blessing as far as I'm concerned. And then out of the blue last night, Debbie had a complete meltdown again, like I hadn't seen for many years. So we knew how to deal with it, so to speak, and chiefly that was down to me holding her and listening and trying to be empathetic and all the stuff that EJ has really taught me.
Safe space,
that I'd had to learn for myself all those years ago, but it hadn't reared its head. Well, it's had a few times, but you always assume that Debbie's fine, or EJ's fine, or you lovely people all out there are fine, but you're clearly not. And there's no conversation about it. And I think people are scared shitless about talking about this, you know what I mean? And if you can't talk about it, excuse me, you'll find me an honest man. If you can't talk about it,
don't worry, we're not censored here. I'm totally good. Carry on.
Right. But so this woman here, and indeed all of you out there, I've got your 6. Don't worry about that, and that doesn't solve anything. But there are people out here who escaped, or not, were not victims. But if we've got any kahunas, then we should be standing behind this campaign and supporting it, because the more we can talk about it, the better it is for people who are suffering. And I take my hat off to everybody on this screen and everybody who I can't see. And as I say, I've got your 6, whatever that means, but you know what I mean. And I send you all my best wishes and love. And I'm sorry, I'm slightly emotional.
Understandably so. It's no problem at all, Charlie. Thank you for your honesty. We talk about mental health an awful lot on this show, and the nature of any mental condition by its very nature is isolating. You think you're the only one. And then in the age of social media, you could be fooled into believing that everyone in the world is having an amazing time apart from you, which can add to depression. That's where social media doesn't really help us in situations like this. But back to the isolation, but that couldn't be further from the truth. There are so many millions like us that may have escaped it, may have experienced it or not experienced it, but want to support. And I will wear this with absolute pride. And if people ask me about it, I will talk to them, and I'll tell them the truth. Very much want to support the campaign. There does seem to be an awful lot more awareness around this, which blew up in the last few years after all the the scandals that we all know about, and suddenly it's right in our faces in the spotlight. But maybe it needs to be. So we can maybe finally begin to address some of the root causes, or at least have preventative strategies. I don't know. We'll talk about that later, maybe. Sarah, hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Sarah.
Hello. How are you? All right.
Lovely to have you here, Sarah. What brings you here?
I'm a victim of child sexual abuse. I was abused as a young child. In what I think was a random attack, but looking back, perhaps it wasn't as random, knowing how perpetrators work. I was about 5 years of age. I was at a friend's birthday party, and I was raped as a child.
Good God.
Um, anyway, years went by. I'd become an actress. I was always thought to be a bit difficult, I think, but I now know I disassociated a lot.
Yeah.
So I would be an avid reader. I loved acting, and I now realize after years of therapy it was a form of escape because I could be someone else. I didn't have to deal with the panic that was going on in my brain.
I understand that. Yeah.
I actually disassociated when the actual crime happened, and that's something your brain does to protect you in a way.
I've heard this. It's
Yeah.
a protective mechanism of our brain
Yeah.
or unconscious mind to
Yeah.
store it away because it's too difficult to deal with at the time,
Yeah.
and then it tends to come up sometimes
Yeah.
at the most
Yeah.
inopportune moments. When it
Yeah.
comes up, there's people in certain circles, you could call it in healing circles, say it comes up when you're ready to deal with it. Essentially, the unconscious mind or the brain,
Yeah.
as you put it, is
Yeah.
protecting you,
Mhm.
and it's doing what it should be doing. But there comes a point when it becomes deleterious to your recovery to be
Yeah.
protected in this way anymore. And finally, you know,
you snap, and that's
work
what
has
happened to
to
me. I decided I wanted to kill myself. I was married. I had 3 children. I had a successful career, but I couldn't live in my skin anymore. It's hard to explain. It's like a revulsion. It's post-traumatic stress disorder, basically.
and a huge dose of good old shame as well.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
and almost not understand. As a child, I did have trauma responses, and I had a middle-class background. My father was a headmaster. My mother was a primary school teacher. My 9 Welsh for grandmother lived with us. But I wet the bed a lot. I would have temper tantrums, still do sometimes. And I did, and they just say, "Oh, you're being naughty." There was nothing, wrong with my background. It's just that people didn't ask children how they felt about anything. Really, they would say, "What's wrong with you? Don't be naughty."
I think it's relatively recent that we're starting
Yes.
to take into consideration children's feelings. A friend of mine tells this story that her parents split up, and it was all going through the courts and all that sort of thing. And fair play to her, she's only young. She said, "But what about what I want here? I want to see both of you." But we're not that far away from this issue being swept under the carpet. It's all a bit embarrassing. Let's just put our heads in the sand and pretend it doesn't happen because we wouldn't like to look bad. What would other people think? And that's just an awful strategy. But it's not to say it hasn't been tried an awful lot. I would say.
Yeah, so that's what happened to me, and then someone took me to hospital. I thought I was going to crash my car. I can only describe it as wanting the pain to stop.
Yeah.
And then my eldest daughter rang me, and I looked down at the phone, and I did an emergency stop. And I can't remember much afterwards. A gentleman took me to the A&E department of the University Hospital in Cardiff. And that's when I started to get better. They were absolutely fantastic. The psychiatrist, nurses, and everybody.
It does seem sometimes that we meet the right people at the right time, and I don't know if they were there all along. I don't know. I can't. It's not a logical thing. It's not something that can be explained with logic. But I'm so glad. And how are you today?
I'm much better. I spoke about on a Welsh language program called Dan Llwyd. They asked me to be interviewed about my career, and I asked them, well, I would actually like to speak about what's actually happened to me in my life. And they were fantastic. They used Tinopolis, and they went along with it, and they provided me with further counselling if I wanted it. And so then it became public, and I've been inundated actually with people who have been abused themselves sexually as children.
I'm not surprised
because surprised really.
Because and number one, it helps people not to feel alone, and number two, you're very approachable in that way.
Mm.
If you know, it's almost like I want to say Me Too, which is
Yeah.
not a million
Yeah,
miles
but
away
it's
from
true. Yes.
it's not a million miles away from this at all. You know, the
No.
Me Too movement is it. Welcome to the room, Nadia. It's lovely to have you here. I'm coming around. I'm gonna come around. We're just basically going around the room at the moment because everyone's got such a fantastic contribution to make. It just seems to be the best way of doing it. Comments wise, for those watching, any questions, feel free to put the questions on the screen. I'm sure these wonderful people will be happy to answer them. And of course, no one has to answer any question they don't want to. It's not that kind of media. There's a lady in the chat whose name begins with H. I don't want to say her name out loud, but if H, you know who you are, sitting here watching with her husband. Do I have your permission to put that on screen? I could put this one on the screen because it's not very identifiable. KD, thank you, EJ. KD and EJ for speaking out and helping us survivors, making sure this important conversation happens. And Chris says, very grateful for the opportunity to connect. Thank you. So we're getting some support from the folks watching. But any other comments, please do put them on the screen. Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing. Right, I'm just gonna go around in order. Okay, Stuart, hello to you.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. So, what brings you here?
So I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse. I was abused by a family friend who was quite well known. He was a friend of my mum's, and I grew up in the 90s. So there was this estate that I grew up on, and me and my brother and our friends wanted to go and clean cars for people. £5 would do your whole car inside and out, be spotless. It'd be awful, but we did it. And we went to a guy's house who I knew my mum knew. He was a singer. He worked with everybody, absolutely everybody in the industry, huge names. He had a big Rolls Royce, and I thought, let's clean it for him. Let's knock on his door. Even if we clean it for free, we'll clean it for him. No, what child gets to say they cleaned a big Rolls Royce for somebody that was well known? We knocked on his door. He answered. He invited us in. We cleaned his car. That was the end of it. He gave us £20.
Right.
We couldn't believe our luck. The next month, me and my brother walked past again. And my brother carried on walking. He said, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there today. You go. And I went there by myself. And I went and cleaned the car, got invited in. And we just chatted. I explained to him that I wanted to be a singer like him. At this point, I wasn't an actor. I was only 10 years old. So I wanted to be a singer. Could he help me? He said, absolutely, I'll help you. I'll give you singing lessons. I'll help you get into the industry. I'll introduce you to the right people. And at this point, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is fantastic. This is people. You don't get those opportunities in this business. I know that. Charlie will know that. Everybody, Emma will know that. Everybody will know. Sarah will know that you don't get those opportunities just given to you like that. You have to really work for them. And at 10 years old, to have that on you was I couldn't believe it. I actually couldn't believe that someone was taking an interest in me, in what I actually wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it continued. He invited me round, and it turned out that he was friends with my mum. He used to play in a band in the pub that she worked at years ago, and that's how it started. So my mum sort of rekindled her friendship with him, and I went out to gigs with him. Well, I say gigs, like huge concerts, to work with people like Shirley Bassey and Tom Jones, and
wow.
To be there as a 10, 11, 12-year-old kid watching all that stuff happen is absolutely amazing.
It's story-eyed dreams come true, which makes it even crueler, actually.
Yeah. And then one day it happened the first time. He raped me. And I was the first time that it happened was on a boat. This big amazing boat. I'd never really been on a boat like that in my life, and I'd certainly never been on there with somebody that was well known. And it really shocked me. I didn't really know what was happening at first. I hadn't even hit puberty at 10 years old. It's
no, you would never have a clue.
Yeah, I didn't. And at first I thought, oh, is this supposed to happen? I don't know. I didn't really know. I was naive. I was 10. You know, I've got kids myself now, and I look back and I look at things that they do now. And I think, God, at your age, that was actually happening to me.
I know.
And it's really scary. But you know, it continued, and then it continued over a 5-year period, and it happened in the most horrendous places, in dressing rooms, studios, or dressing rooms, concerts where there was once there was a concert that I'd gone to, and I was sitting in the dressing room, and it happened. And one of the most famous singers that you can get was on the stage. He was supporting them. Were on stage, and I could hear their music pumping through the speakers into the dressing room with them singing live on stage while this is happening to me. And I couldn't believe it. And even up to this point, I didn't say anything to anybody, nobody, not a soul.
Why not? Because you didn't know you could, because you were scared? Was there any kind of coercion or threat
Everything.
to you?
Because I didn't know who would believe me. I was, and up to a certain point, I didn't even know that it was wrong. I didn't even know that was not supposed to happen.
Yeah, why would you?
Yeah, I hadn't really learnt about sex education at school or anything like that.
No.
And it's that grooming process as well. That's the main.
This is what I was thinking all the way through. This is classic grooming. It's classic grooming.
Absolutely, you know,
and playing on someone's dream makes
Yeah.
it crueler than ever. I mean, it's awful, but that whole aspect of playing on someone's dream, like
Yeah.
we've seen in football, there's been scandals there and things like that.
Yeah.
And you know,
absolutely.
gymnastics and other fields and all that sort of thing with names I could cite. You know, but it's that whole playing on someone's dream and then to shatter it, to do that, it just adds an extra layer of cruelty to it, and it does make me really angry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I let it go on for years and years and years. Said nothing, and then pulled away from him. And then a few years later, I found out that he'd sexually abused a 4-year-old boy.
God.
And he'd gone to prison for 4 years for that. I say it only happened the once, but thank God it only happened the once, and that he was caught and he wasn't able to do it anymore to this young lad. But I felt so much guilt because I hadn't said anything. I blamed myself for that. And I, even now, no matter what anybody says to me, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Even in court, the judge said to me, "It's not your fault." I said, "But it is, because if I'd come forward, he wouldn't have done that." So I will always blame myself. I've learned to try and deal with that, but I will always blame myself. But when he was in prison, I think
it's true that everyone does the best with the knowledge and resources they had at the time. I think that's always true for everyone. So for that reason alone, I know you've heard it from a million people, don't blame yourself because you simply didn't know any better. I understand why you would, but for my money, it's obviously not necessary, I'm sure.
No, but whilst he was in prison, actually, I actually got a visiting order to go and see him. Went to see him, and I didn't mention anything about me or what had happened to me or why he was even in there. I just went. I sort of sat there, listened to him spill his jargon at me or whatever it was saying. I can't even remember what he was saying now. And all the while I was sitting there, I'm thinking, I'm going to come forward. I'm going to come forward. You're this is it now. This is, I know where you are now. And it's that I heard a story about a lady that was absolutely petrified of birds. And she was in her house, and in her front garden there was a massive peacock, and she was absolutely petrified of it. But because the doors and the windows were closed, she knew that it couldn't get to her. So I sort of looked at my story a little bit like that. All the while he was behind bars, he couldn't get to me. So as soon as I walked out of there, I went straight to the police, reported him.
Welcome.
And actually, it went on for about 2 years, and it wasn't actually picked up by the CPS in the end. They said there wasn't sufficient evidence to even charge him. I was like, oh my God. So I went through all that for nothing. 6 months later, the police called me and said, we've had 2 other people come forward that have been abused by this man, would you be happy for us to reopen your case? And I said, absolutely, yes, please. And it went to trial. There was 3 victims, and he was found guilty and was sentenced to 18 years for rape, child abuse, sexual assault.
That's more like him. Yeah, it
Yeah.
still doesn't. I mean, it's I mean, I'm not going to ask you who it was. Absolutely not. But it sounds like it's a name that we would know.
I mean, he's out there. He's out there. It was a guy called Billy Nutt. He was a singer. He's not anymore. Well, he's singing in his cell now, thank God.
Right.
But no, I'm quite happy to say his name because I know he can't get to me anymore.
And that is, what do I want to say here? Such growth in yourself, such progress. You know, he can't get to me anymore. That's, and I don't mean just physically. I mean emotionally.
Yeah.
And that,
well, yeah,
that's,
because
even
up to the day of the sentencing, I still loved him. I loved him. And I was
is this to do with trauma bonding? This kind of confused...
It's a little it's similar. Well, they did say it was Stockholm syndrome.
Right.
It's where you love, or there is a love for your captor or your abuser, and you can't get away from that. And he'd groomed me so much, and you know, he told people that I was his son or his nephew. And I really felt that, you know, I went through a tough time as a kid. My mum and dad split up. I just wanted to feel some sort of love, and I felt that he was giving that to me, but sadly in the wrong way.
But I mean, these people know what they're doing. The problem is they're good at it,
100%,
and they know exactly who to predate on. Always the weak ones. Always the one where something's missing in their life. Always the one that may have had the difficult time.
Easy targets.
Growing up, we saw the same in Epstein, for God's sake, with the girls he was getting on. Right?
Yeah.
So, you know, even now, I have my ways of dealing with things. You know, I've gone through stages of drinking. Thank God I never touched drugs or anything like that. But, you know, I did drink to black out from it, because I didn't want, you know, it caused relationship problems for me, issues with friends and family, all that stuff. And I blamed myself for ages and ages. Why didn't you? I blame myself more for that, what happened to the little boy, more for than what happened to me, because I don't know. I still, but this campaign has helped me learn that it isn't my shame. It's not mine. And as you said,
it is
let
not.
him drop. Yeah.
And what I've learned from people that have been through healing journeys and all kinds of things is the triggers do still come in anything, but I find generally a fairly common pattern is they become less intense, less regular, or less long, or any combination of those. So Charlie was saying about a recent incident, but it hadn't happened for a while, so that would be less regular. And then this is what the pattern I've noticed, and in my own healing process as well. I struggled with my mental health about 4 years ago for various reasons, nothing to do with this subject. But I found as I got better, less intense, less regular, less long, and I really held on to that. That's something that really helped me. We have permission from Holly Gibson. Hello, Holly, to put her comments on screen. I was 4 to 14 years old. I appreciate you, EJ, and everything you do. Sat here in my T-shirt with the husband supporting, and she's also commented, absolutely, Stuart, just to validate what you say, Stuart, whilst my father is in prison, he can't get to me. I have fear of him being released over the next year or two, but thankfully I have things in place for him never to contact me. Yeah, because it's the right thing for you. You know, it's about putting you, the survivor, back in control.
Exactly.
But I love what you said. That was so powerful that you said he can't get to me, because I took that on 2 levels. Obviously he can't because he's in prison, but emotionally as well.
Both ways, yeah,
always. Doesn't hurt me anymore. You can't hurt me anymore. I'm claiming back my power. I'm claiming back my power. You have no power over me, and that's powerful. That's powerful. Wow. Anything else you'd like to add?
Just that EJ and everybody on this journey is fantastic. It's so good. I've said from day one, if I can help one person, that's the job done.
And I think that my inbox last night, I put some stuff on Twitter and Instagram last night. My inbox is full of messages, and I will get back to them.
I think it's fair to say that you've more than smashed that target.
Yeah, and I will keep going
And will
until
continue
I take
to
my
do
last
so.
breath. Yeah.
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 This is probably one of the most powerful shows I've ever done since I've been doing the Midday show. It's thank you, Stuart. Thank you so much.
You.
It's absolutely brilliant. Just quickly go to my banners. Hello, Nadia. Before I put your banner up, Nadia, you do so much, and I have to read out what's on Insta. Actor, child protection activist, certified NLP, me too, hypnotherapy, not me, TLT master practitioner, that's timeline therapy, I'm guessing, certified MBIT coach, AWOL volunteer, thriving, learning, and in awe of the cosmos. I just had to read that out because that's absolutely brilliant introduction, but I couldn't fit it all on one line. Hi, Nadia, how are you? Oh, you're muted. Could you or maybe have I muted you? Let me just see. No. Can you unmute yourself? Bottom left of the screen. There's a button that says mute.
Nadia is an incredible woman. While she's looking to unmute herself, she took Not My Shame to the United Nations last year.
Wow.
And it had a massive impact. And that was led by Nadia. And in Pakistan, she's done a great awareness for this conversation, and helped so many. I know she's also had a bit of an exciting morning. She's been in hospital this morning with a broken toe.
Oh goodness! I think she's just trying to reboot herself. I can see what's going on in the green room. Let's try that again. I so want to speak to you. Hello?
Can you hear me?
We can, loud and clear. Welcome to the show. I loved your, as I say, biog on Instagram.
Yes, I heard. Thank you.
I felt there was a bit of Deepak Chopra going on there with fascination in the cosmos and all that sort of stuff. But so much you've done and are doing so much. Please, why are you here? And please tell us about the United Nations story as well, which we've just learned.
It's a privilege to be amongst such amazing and courageous people. I was raped from the age of 4 to 9, and then 17 to 19. I grew up in this really privileged, happy home with cousins, and I'm in Meadowbank in London, and it was just something that he would hang me upside down from the top story of our house, and from my ankles. And I don't remember if I ever told my mother or not. She doesn't talk about it with me. And I know that the police was called once because the neighbors heard me screaming. But I think what I have found intriguing is that so much of it was blocked out in my mind until I became a hypnotherapist. And I was one of my colleagues. I was there pro bono for hypnotherapy, and she and the feeling that I wanted to get rid of in my hypnosis was panic, because I was, by this age, a 48-year-old woman. I was successful. I was a successful actor. I had a good career. I married the person I was in love with. I had children, but there was this raging restlessness inside me, and these intrusive thoughts. I just would not accept that I could be depressed, or that I wasn't dealing with stuff that I needed to deal with. There was that.
No, sorry, I jumped in. I want to ask back to you. Sorry.
No. So from 4 to 9, it was the chauffeur, and my grandfather's chauffeur in London. And after my parents would leave, He'd be babysitting me. And from 17 to 19, it was somebody in my college. And I think a pattern developed. A pattern developed of me choosing abuse, of me choosing anyone who could control me, of me never choosing myself. That I didn't understand what that meant. Choosing myself was something
This seems to be
vague.
common. It's like,
Yeah,
it's almost like we try and almost go back and get it right. Not that you did wrong in the first place, but this does seem to be common. It's like people in the same relationship patterns that don't work for time
I
to time
think
to time.
it became clear to me what was going on when I was doing NLP. So and the body keeps score. The body keeps score. I was always sick. I was epileptic. I got cancer in 2020, and after my cancer, when my partner walked out on me, I was just devastated. And I had a complete nervous breakdown where I overdosed. And I overdosed knowing that this is the thing I think that crushes me really. I was the abuser of my own child, because my 13-year-old, it was the first lockdown of COVID, and my 13-year-old found me alone. He had no one to turn to. He had to call emergency, obviously, and very few people were going to come out of their bubbles. One friend did, but he found me. So he has been through nights of trauma. So I think for me, I learned, and I think NLP just completely anchored that for me, that my mental health is my responsibility. It is my responsibility. If I had turned to my mental health issues before, or just even recognized them,
But again, you wouldn't know what you were looking for, and NLP teachings haven't always been as accessible as they are now. I mean, it is powerful, but you're right, you have to do the work. But yeah,
I mean, I think for me, knowing that he has seen me, and for 2 weeks I was a mess, and he was babysitting me till my mother came in on a chartered flight from the British Council. And I think it's just during NLP, before NLP, all my resources had been men or women outside of me, anything to save me, but it was a person. The help had to be external. During COVID, with cancer, the only resources I had available to me were these courses online. And I did my course online. And during that there's one particular exercise that you might be familiar with, perceptual positions.
Yes, very much so. I know perceptual positions. Yeah.
So in perceptual positions, during the course, I raised my hand for the demo. And how the exercise goes is that you're meant to talk to something or somebody that is that you're having a struggle with, or that is a conflict. And I chose to talk to my 4-year-old self. And I sat there and I looked at her, the imaginary 4-year-old self, and I told her that I couldn't stand her. I told her I wish she was dead, because she has messed up all my relationships. She's made me needy. She's made me frightened. She's made me scared. I just lashed out on her completely. And then I have to stand up, shake it off. And then I go into the position of my 4-year-old self. And I sit down as my 4-year-old self, and I listen to what adult Nadia has just said. And my 4-year-old self just looked at me and said, wow, and you're a child protection worker. You've been working in child protection for what, 30 years? You're the biggest hypocrite, the biggest fraud Pakistan has seen.
Wow.
You cannot go back and change what happened to me. But what you can do is try taking care of your 48-year-old self, because you expose us to people. You expose us to hurt. If you just take care of yourself, I'll be fine. And I think her telling me and showing me what a hypocrite I was, what a liar I was, when I shook it off and I came back to my seat as myself, it took me some time to listen to her words and then apologize to her. And it was the first time that I was reaching out. I was reaching out to her because for my entire life, I'd been leasing her out to other people to babysit. And that was also the time that I started growing up, because I was
It
not
sounds
raised.
like the beginning of self-acceptance and self-love, if I may.
Self-acceptance and adult.
Because all inner child work is about that ultimately, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. And I think I was a Peter Pan woman, just like a full of energy, full of, charisma, but emotionally really, really 4 years old, 9 years old.
Yeah.
So that's where my journey took off. And I think and my love affair started with me.
Good.
And then I think the universe, when you choose something, the universe just sends people your way, as you mentioned.
It does seem to. We touched on that earlier.
Yeah. And so then I met Emma online, and I was blown. I mean, hashtag not my shame was huge. It was so powerful for me to see those words, that it's not my shame. I live in a country where women don't even have to be raped to feel shame. But if you are raped, that is the biggest shame. The word in Urdu, the word in my language to talk about rape is izzat lut gayi. My honor has been stolen. So this was somebody telling me that no, my honor was never stolen, ever. And these are things that I'd already understood, but seeing them validated.
Yeah, I mean that's the worst kind of victim blaming, isn't it? When it becomes all about someone else's honor or the honor of a family. And I'm aware of these terms, but none of that helps you accept yourself. It just adds another layer of shame. So I imagine the message, not my shame, suddenly in the best way woke you up, in a good way.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. And then of course Emma is amazing. And
she is.
Then the group, the Facebook group was amazing. And it's also like you find this tribe, another tribe that I belong to. That is a tribe of these incredible people who have turned towards healing and have survived and thrived, regardless of the consequences, regardless of what happened to them. So I'm very proud of the tribe, of people who I meet in Not My Shame. And United Nations invited me to honor my work with children. I work with children who have been who have suffered trauma as a coach now. And when they were honoring me, I made a point to wear my t-shirt. So and a short video was made before the speech. A short video was made in which we get to speak about why we do the work we do. And for me, it was facilitating these children to understand it's not their shame, and how powerful this movement is, and how I want the world to own it. Yeah.
And there are much more advanced treatments now. You've mentioned NLP, and I would say the treatment for, and let's call it what it is, post-traumatic stress, or any of these very serious things, it's so much more advanced and potentially quicker now. It's not like, if anyone's watching and thinks it's men in white coats like Freud and analyzing your past or something, it's not like that anymore. It's so much more streamlined and faster. And it can get to the core much, much quicker. People like Paul McKenna is pioneers in this kind of thing. And another one, you mentioned the body keeps the score. I don't know if you're referring to the book, Gabor Mate.
The book, absolutely, I did.
I'm sure we're all familiar with Dr. Gabor Mate. Yeah, Emma's nodding.
And working with children, they have taught me so much. My young clients have taught me so much, because I can't do talk with them. A lot of the stuff, that's where I found embraining to be really powerful, reframing to be really powerful, stuff like perceptual positions to be really powerful, and a lot of play therapy to be very powerful. So I think, and it taught me how to work with my inner child as well, because working with her is something constant. It's consistent and constant. I keep tapping into her.
Because there's positive aspects to all these parts of us. I mean, the positives of the inner child is the enthusiasm, is all the
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah,
And to make it clear to people watching, you can keep all that, but you don't have to,
absolutely.
you can keep the good bits. You know what I mean?
You
don't have
can
to.
keep the good bits, and I think the key word is self-parenting. So initially, she would be driving all the situations, especially in my intimate relationships. But now, and I was petrified of adults. I was really frightened of adults. I mean, even though I was an actor and I was on stage, I mean, I felt fearless on stage, but I felt really frightened in interviews and things. And I think self-parenting taught me that I get to, she comes out to play, working with these young kids who I work with. She needs to be out, and sometimes she needs to be really in her sympathetic mode and out there in fifth gear. But I decide the adult is in charge. You know.
That's it. I've heard similar analogies in quite spiritual circles about the ego, because the ego gets a pretty bad rap, and and this is quite similar. That the ego was compared to me. It was said to me, the ego is a bit like a puppy. It's a part of you. You love it. It's welcome in the house, but you wouldn't let it wreck the house, if you know what I mean. It's one of those. It's not in charge. It's put back into the right context. In other words, so an adult's running your life, not a scared 4-year-old who.
Yeah. And I think where I'm at right now is where I've understood it's important to own your ego. It's important to understand your ego. You cannot surrender and let go of something that you've never held.
No.
And it's only when you've had enough time with it, understanding it, holding it, then you can let go of it in meditation, in nature, in your work. And you realize that, your identity, for me at least, my identity is not as important as what I do, even if it's doing nothing.
And also, your identity is, for all of us, is much grander than our egos would have us believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The ego is somewhat, at its best, it's limited.
Yeah.
Wow. What incredible.
Yeah. And we were talking about Stockholm syndrome, and I completely hear what you're saying, because 17 to 19, I was brutally treated and raped by somebody who was not much older than me in college. But I worshipped him. And he treated me not only in raping me, and but like in public, he would say, "Watch this," and then he would say, he used to call me little one, pick up that cockroach, or suck my toe, and I'd be like, don't be silly, and he'd be like, suck my toe, come on baby, suck my toe. And I worshipped him. I would do it, and then I would also want that pat on the back from him. So I had to leave the country. I was in college in Pakistan while this was happening. And my parents, and this is it was always running away from what's happening. It was never dealing with it and dealing with the perpetrator. It was always running.
Yeah. And
so that pattern became something in my life common: being abused and running, and needing that validation, needing that external validation. That and also I was highly, I think after I was very over sexualized, and that also was a problem, because it was part of my trauma response, and I didn't understand what to do with it. And there is so much shame attached to that in conservative religious cultures as well. So
yes, unfortunately, conservative religions are not helpful at all in cases like this. They would probably add shame. we're talking about some quite spiritual things here, but let's separate spirituality and religion because they're not the same thing.
Absolutely.
Far
Absolutely.
from it. Far
Absolutely.
from it. Yeah. I think that was touched on in Baby Reindeer recently. I don't know if anyone's seen that. This kind of acting out sexually and not knowing where it came from. But the poor guy, he was a victim as well, you know.
Yeah.
And that's a that's a true story. I remember watching that, binge watching it one morning and thinking, my God, I hope his mental health's all right now. You know, it's been such a powerful show thus far. We're up to an hour. I'm very happy to carry on for a bit. We're not limited by time. There is some more I'd like to do. So if anyone has to dash off, please feel free. But I would like to keep going for a bit if that's all right with everyone.
Yes.
I
Great.
might have to go in about 5 minutes.
Okay, well, you are free to come and go as you please, and we thank you for being on. I tell you what, can I just put your socials on the screen? For some reason, my banner didn't work. Where can people find you, Sarah? Before we go?
On Twitter, I'm
You're Craycroft SE. You're Craycroft SE, and let me just find you. Craycroft
SE.
Yeah,
it's Craycroft SE 10982.
And the Craycroft is CRACROFT.
Sorry. Craycroft SE, what was that number?
10982.
You're as bad as me, Sarah.
I'm terrible. Awful.
I have to look after Charlie.
I need to look after me as well. I'm terrible. My children aren't home. I've got no chance.
That's it. And can I just also say, Sarah translated the hashtag into Welsh, so she is wearing the Welsh T-shirt. I can't say it. What does it have? What does it say?
Oh yeah. Well, how do you say "not my shame" in Welsh?
Hashtag nid fy nghylydd.
Say that, Neil.
That's easy for you to say. Say it again.
Hashtag nid fy nghylydd.
Nid one hillig.
Yeah, I am.
With a bell on every tooth.
So Sarah has been amazing because she translated. We got that T-shirt out, and of course now it's connecting survivors in Wales because of the hashtag. And then we went to Spain, and then Nadia and I went back and forth for what seems like the rest of the year, getting the Urdu hashtag put together, and now so we've got the translations in different languages.
I mean,
and
this
we're
could
going
be translated into every language in the world, and should be.
It should be, and it has to be, right? So we're going to Portugal next. But yeah, so Sarah sort of was the one that sort of, you know, we kicked it off with Sarah, and I'm so grateful for you, Sarah, because you know
I wanted to because my Welsh is my mother tongue. So when when the horrific abuse happened to me, I could hardly speak English. So when I gave my statement to the police, I asked to give it in Welsh because it made more sense. I could recall better in, you know, because I'm obviously bilingual now, but there was a time, and I wanted to show to Welsh speakers that childhood sexual abuse happens in every community. You know, you can,
because we all think it couldn't happen there.
We think it happens over there.
They think they're too posh, they're too this, they're too that, they're too religious. No, it can happen. It can happen anywhere,
and it does happen in every society and in
unfortunately, it's
all spheres of society.
It's a huge problem. We've got another one who I'm going to ask for her permission to put the comment on air, and she's listening. Her name begins with M. You know who you are. If I have your permission to put your comment on the screen, I'd like to share that, please, M. I've already got permission from this one, talking about In the Child, Holly Gibson. I listen to the child in me a lot. I find it helps massively. Then end with a butterfly hug to her, where I hug myself. She matters too. It isn't her shame to hold. Love you. Love to you too, Nadia. Yeah, it isn't. I saw some wonderful inner child work done. I can't remember exactly what it was, but the exercise, it was going back and reassuring the inner child and bringing that healed inner child back into the present moment with the adult. It was kind of integrating all the parts. It was a very clever piece of work.
Is it called regressive therapy? Regressive therapy? When you go back to your inner child? Sorry.
You could do. No, you could call it that, I suppose. It's he didn't call it that, but that would fit, I guess. Yeah. It's about.
I remember it's about, and I remember myself going back and to that child, and actually it was maybe one of the most distressing things ever
Yeah.
to go back to that situation. And I was told to go back and, well, not told, what would you do if you could see your young self now? And I went and picked her up and I scooped her up and I gave her a big hug and I took her out of the room.
That's what
That's
I've
generally
done
it. Because
numerous
if the inner
times.
child, because then if that inner child feels, because all healing happens in the present moment, doesn't it? So if that inner child feels safe in the now, then that part of you will feel safe in the now, and then because it is part of you, you will feel safer in the now. Which
So you're bringing it all back together. So there's not
bringing
that
back the
great big
disparate.
gap from child to adult
Yeah,
where
exactly.
I'm only speaking for myself here, but that child to adult, and when I say adult, I say probably more in the most recent years, where I've understood much more. I've closed that gap by reconnecting with little me.
You're right. It does. I'm reminded of that song by Little Mix called "Little Me," which is the most beautiful record, by the way. It kind of, I don't know if anyone's heard it, but listen to its lyrics. It's a beautiful message. Anyway, but it's also about bringing back the disparate parts of us. So my teacher teaches me, because there's bits that have been disowned. There's bits that we think are too shameful to own. There's all these things, and it's bringing back those parts and kind of integrating them and bringing them to the light, I suppose, if you like, is a good way of putting it. But then we become more whole, more integrated, and we're not being pulled in a million different directions by all these seemingly, and I say seemingly, disparate parts, but all the parts, what did my teacher say, want and deserve a seat at the table when we're ready to invite them to our table. That is. Yeah.
I'm going to have to go now because I've got a makeup call.
Thank you all. Sarah's in the middle of filming at the moment, and thank you to your production team, Sarah, for letting me out.
Well, good luck with the. Can we ask what the production is? Can you tell us?
Yeah, I play a character in Pobl y Cwm, which is the Welsh language soap opera, similar to EastEnders and Coronation Street.
I remember that when I was growing up. I do.
It's still on. We're in our 50th year, so there's celebrations.
Well, good luck with the rest of the shoot. It's been lovely to meet you. There's an open
forum. Very much.
There's an open forum on this show. Anytime you want to come on, find me on the socials, and if you want to come on and promote anything that you're doing,
thank you very much,
or anything to do with the course, you just let me know. Sarah Crocroft, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye, Sarah.
Thank you, everybody.
Wow.
Yeah, she's an incredible lady. And I think also, if I've got an opportunity, can I just give a shout out to Jo, Lynn, Sharon, who work very hard with me on the group that Nadia was just talking about, the Facebook group. We have a support group, and we've got over 550 members on there now, and I know Nadia and Sarah are part of that, and it's just a support system for survivors. You can only come in the group as a survivor because you're understood and understanding what the process is. Some people want to talk, some people don't want to talk. So Sharon, Jo and Lynn have been incredible helping me run that, and then a lady called Chris does the rock drop day, and also I want to give big a shout out to Karen Wood today, because she has created those videos that you've seen. She's created the Not My Shame and the Not Their Shame one.
I'm gonna close the show by playing that out again. I think that'd be a nice finish. And that was going to be my next question, actually. If people have been affected by this, it doesn't matter when you're watching it. I mean, this was recorded on the 1st of May 2024, but it might be 2034 and you're watching this. Where do people go for that first step to get help?
With the campaign, we've got the website notmyshame.global. On there is a link to all the social media, because not everybody will want to be seen. Some people just might like to keep an eye on what's been happening on the social media pages, because that might be just a support enough. Not everybody will want to put a t-shirt or a ribbon on or stand forward, and I don't advise anyone actually to do that until you have a good idea of where you are with your own healing, because of course we know it could be very damaging if you speak out too soon.
Yeah, we don't want to re-traumatize.
No, and not everybody is as understanding as you guys are in the public domain. So some people can be commenting and behaving in ways that can cause triggers and set people right back. So you go to the website, there's links there. If you wanted to join the private support group, it's a safe space for survivors. You go to the Facebook link, you just answer the questions and agree to the rules. We have chat rooms in there. So there's, I don't know, like 15 chat rooms, and in all the chat rooms, so if you wanted, you'll see me in the pet spam chat room, because we just share pictures of our animals and pets, and it's really beautiful. There's link and signposting chat rooms. There's the legal chat room. There's the give and get support chat room. There's the creative room. There's the poetry room. So basically, if you like poetry, you go to the poetry room, and that is all you will see in there is people posting about poetry. And we've just tried to create less noise by making different rooms, and also keeping conversations on track, because it can go off track. And we have moderators in every room. So if you're in the pet span room and you start talking about legal, they'll just say, actually, do you want to just move back to the legal room and
You always
continue
need the
your
moderators,
conversation?
yeah.
Yes, you do need moderators,
Very
and
much
there is
so, yes.
there's loads of them. We've got, like I say, so and then if you want to share your story, you can. If you want to observe, you can, and if you want to leave, you can. No one's holding anyone anywhere. This is, like I say, it's a space to help make people feel better. The hashtag is to empower people. If you're finding it too uncomfortable, which it can be, we're all going to have our days and moments, like Charlie was saying has happened recently, in his own personal life. You just maybe have to just step back and switch off the notifications for a bit and then rejoin.
Tell us a little bit about project9010.com. Tell us about this website. Can you give us
Yes, so Project 9010 is a charity that was created. It's been taken, well, probably 51 years of my life to get to this point. And in about last 4 years, I've been really seriously thinking, I wanted to give back anything I could to help protect children, and the charity seemed like the most practical and obvious way to go through that route. It wasn't an easy feat to get a charity formed. Anyone who's in charity will tell you that, and especially when the subject
It's the
is
hardest
child
thing in
sex
the world to
abuse.
set up a charity. I mean, it should be the easiest, so I've heard.
Well, I think it's also quite good because it also prevents anyone using charity for anything untoward, which of
For
course we
nefarious
know has
purposes, yeah, fair
happened.
enough.
So I consider myself a fairly intelligent woman, but I've been tested on a number of occasions as we set up that charity. Anyway, so the charity is now set up. We've got a board, trustee board of 7 phenomenal people, from HR directors, from very senior, so it's the senior. Well, I maybe shouldn't say some of the people that are in there, but anyway, they're very, very strong board, very professional people looking to achieve the same end as I do, and that's to protect children. So we are putting together an education pack. I have taken it to the House of Commons. I have been speaking over the last year on this conversation at various PSHE days, and it's been picked up and people are very enthusiastic about it. It's called PAC. It's PAC is an acronym: protection, awareness, communication and knowledge. We're looking to just encourage children to understand those 4 words. We're not telling children to be careful of, your mum, dad, loved ones of child sexual abuse. What we're doing is we're empowering children to be able to understand when it could be a difficult conversation, when to ask questions, when to acknowledge that it might not be appropriate behaviours that happen to you. So what you're doing is you're potentially stopping a child from being groomed before
Well, this is the thing. There was a debate
child is being
on.
groomed.
There was a debate on LBC Radio a while ago, and one of the presenters there was saying, and he'd done a real 180 degrees in his thinking. He said, I thought first, like a lot of people, I don't think children should be taught about this. It's not appropriate. But then he did a 180 degree in his thinking, and he thought, well, wait a minute, but if they're not, how would they ever know that it's not appropriate?
Yeah, and I think, like I say, we're not standing
I
in.
agree.
We're not standing. Yeah, you also, there's a lot of science around all this education, and we've got to work with the fact that children are developing. So we work with psychologists, and we have a research team making sure that we're developing, and we work with schools developing the education so it's in line with the development of a child. You cannot be giving a 4-year-old education that you'd give a 16-year-old.
No.
You need to really manage that. And I think at the moment, and Stuart just said no there, but you cannot. So many people are
No.
throwing adult conversations at young children. And personally, in my opinion, I think that's wholly inappropriate. Just putting it out there.
You've done so much brilliant and detailed work. I think we're all agreed, everyone on this screen, that you are a beautiful, incredible human being, Emma Jane, as is everyone here. But you particularly, it's just, as I said, when I heard your story on Madeline Black's Unbroken podcast, it blew me away. And I'm so glad that I've had the privilege of being able to do this and contribute in some way. Can I say there is open forum for everyone who's been on the show today to come back, promote stuff you're doing. I mean, certainly if it's to do with this subject, if you're doing things in this, we always have you on as a guest. And you too, of course, EJ, anytime you want to come back on.
Thank you, Neil.
Please.
And a bit like Charlie, I used to listen to you when you were on Capital Radio.
You poor misguided woman.
That shows my age. And now here we are. And I used to listen to you and Russ Kane in the Flying A on Capital Radio when I was
Flying A. Oh, Russ Kane and his funny little plane.
Bless him.
Yeah. And
I was all night long, Neil Long. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you know what? Capital Radio throughout my young years was a great source for me, because music is very, very comforting for me. And so Capital Radio was such a comfort for me as a child. And I can't believe that I'm in the room with you and Charlie and Stuart and Nadia and Sarah now, all incredible people. It's overwhelming, actually. But
well, I'm glad to shatter a radio myth, because most people think radio is glamorous, and as you can see, it's not. But that's a lovely thing to hear, because at Capital it was very competitive there, obviously. I was only in my 20s, but to know that even then, indirectly, without even knowing it, I made a difference is absolutely fantastic, because that wouldn't even occur to me at the time. I've just got to finish with this question. There's this weird rumor circulating on social media, and I think it's nonsense, but apparently people are saying that you've got a fiance.
Yes, I have.
What? You do?
Yes, I do.
I had to throw that one in. Come on.
Every opportunity I can, I will. Yeah, I found love eventually with an incredible person. Charlie's met him, and he is a rock. He's there at every twist and turn with all of the things that I'm doing, whether it's work, campaigning, charity. He's very understanding, thank goodness. And I can't wait to get married this year in December. So thank you, Neil, for raising that.
I can't wait for you to get married either. It's going to be great fun.
Yes, it's going to be great fun.
Well, if you need a DJ for your wedding, you can have Capital Radio DJs.
Oh, yes.
I might even do it for free as a wedding present for you. If you want.
You're booked. I'd love that. Thank you, Neil.
We'll talk about that. Charlie Lawson, thank you so much for being on.
It's a pleasure. It's
really lovely to meet you. And I've watched you for years. I'm a little bit overwhelmed as well, is it?
I always say to EJ, sometimes you feel like a bit of an intruder, but anybody out there, you have my love and support, and thank you, Neil, and lovely to meet you, Nadia, Stu, and my ever-loving EJ. I'll see you soon, sweetie.
Thanks for being on, Charlie. Stuart Anthony, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you. Thanks to EJ. Thanks to you all for just being there and being able to chat today.
It's been wonderful. Thanks, Nadia, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you.
And Sarah, of course, as well. And Emma Jane Taylor at EJ Taylor UK.
Yay!
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for being on. Keep in touch. And we had a little private WhatsApp group, didn't we? If anyone would like the footage of this, just stick your email address in that group, and I will get this footage to you. And there's no restrictions on it. You can use it for any darn purpose you like.
Thank you, Neil, and thank you, Russ.
No problem. And I'll pass those good wishes on to Russ as well. We'll close out with this. This has been the Midday Show. Friday, Russ Kane is back with Phil Dave, Screen Queen Chantal Rickards, and Jonathan Bez, theatre critic as well, with a fun Friday show. And I'll see you next Monday. And but for now, what a show this has been. What a powerful, powerful show. Not my shame.
Hashtag
Not
My
shame. I not
afraid. To
say
I
was
sexually
abused
as a child.
I was just
A
child.
it isn't
I shame.
Good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in.